Smoke burned his eyes as he faced his greatest test. A gunshot rang out, echoing off abandoned storefronts. The fallen reverend's hand trembled on his last loaded revolver, a metallic tang of blood mixed with the smell of gunpowder in the cold night air. Across the dusty street, a burly gunslinger pressed his six-shooter to a pregnant woman's head. "Drop it, preacher, or I drop her," he snarled. The reverend's heart pounded like a drum in his chest. Sweat stung his eyes as he steadied his aim. Would he trade an innocent life for the $10,000 payday? Barton Springs Saloon. Lamplight swayed in the dusky tavern as the bartender polished a glass behind the empty bar. Reverend Josiah Wade sat hunched over a cold coffee, hat tipped low. He thumbed a tarnished silver pocket watch, its cracked face catching the last orange light. 6:00 p.m. 6 hours to earn $10,000 or lose his last chance to right a wrong. From a corner, Josiah overheard a cowhand reading a broadside aloud. "Wanted for murder. Lily Dawson," the man muttered. "Reward, $10,000. And she's with child, too." Josiah's ears perked beneath his hat brim. A $10,000 bounty was a fortune, enough to pay Pastor Billings' doctor and rebuild the little mission. It could be the answer to a prayer he wasn't sure God heard. Grace Evans pushed through the bat-wing doors on a breath of cool evening air. The smell of saddle leather and lilac perfume wafted in with the nurse. She hurried to Josiah, skirts brushing sawdust. "Pastor Billings is worse," she said softly. "He's asking for you." Josiah didn't look up. His gaze stayed on the wanted poster of Lily tacked to the wall, the word "murder" glaring above the crude sketch of a young woman. He froze, torn. The old preacher who'd saved his soul lay dying, yet a fugitive's bounty beckoned. If he brought Lily in by dawn, the reward could buy the old man's cure, and perhaps Josiah's own absolution. He stood abruptly, chair legs scraping. Grace's face fell. "You're going after her, aren't you?" she whispered. Outside, the sky burned red as daylight drained behind the crags. Josiah set his jaw. "Stay here. I'll be back by dawn." Her eyes brimmed. "Josiah, don't do this," Grace pleaded, voice cracking. "This isn't the way." He paused, coat in hand. Grace's fragrance of lilac and the fear in her eyes tugged at him, but the poster's bold words, "dead or alive," seared themselves into his mind. He touched the steel cross tucked under his collar, then pulled his hat brim low. "Sometimes a man doesn't get to choose his penance," he said. Josiah turned and pushed out into the twilight, leaving Grace in anguished silence. As the doors swung shut, a lonely piano note from the empty saloon echoed after him. What price would he pay for redemption? High Plains, dusk. Josiah rode east as the last ember of sun died on the horizon. Stars ignited one by one in the vast purple sky. In the open desert, the peppery smell of sagebrush mingled with cooling sand. He guided his mare down a narrow gulch, eyes probing the ground for tracks in the dim light. A bent sage branch, a single hoof print in mud. Lily had passed here, and not long ago. His pulse quickened. A distant coyote howl rippled through the dusk, answered by a chorus of yips. Josiah pressed on, the jangle of his horse's bridle the only reply. Every shadow and saguaro took on sinister shapes in the creeping dark. The reverend's grip tightened on his reins. He had to find her before someone else did, or before the desert claimed them both. Suddenly, a rifle crack split the silence. A bullet whistled past Josiah's ear and splintered a mesquite branch beside him. He jerked back in the saddle as his mare reared, snorting. Gun smoke curled on the night breeze. Josiah dove from his horse and hit the dirt behind a boulder, heart hammering. Who was out there? Another bounty hunter, an accomplice of Lily's. His mind raced even as he steadied his breathing. "Come out, preacher," a voice shouted from the darkness. "That bounty's mine." Josiah peeked around the rock and caught a moonlit glint off a rifle barrel on the ridge. He had 6 shots and an unseen enemy. He silently drew his revolver, thumbed back the hammer. The night air felt suddenly cold against the sweat on his neck. The scent of gunpowder reached him before he heard the next shot. Keep calm. He raised his pistol, took quick aim at the muzzle flash, and fired. The boom echoed across the flats. A startled curse rang out, followed by the sound of tumbling gravel, the shooter scrambling back. Josiah seized the moment. Staying low, he dashed to a new position among the rocks. For a long breath, only the chirr of crickets filled the void. Had he scared the attacker off, or were they circling to kill him? The Reverend pressed his back to stone, eyes scanning the thin shadows. In the distance, his horse pawed the dirt nervously. A cloud slid over the moon, cloaking the gulch in darkness. Then he heard it, faint but clear. Not a gunman, but a woman's scream carried on the night wind from somewhere up ahead. Josiah's blood ran cold. Lily. He forgot the sniper and sprinted to his horse, vaulting into the saddle. There was no time to double back or be cautious. He kicked the mare into a gallop toward the cry, hooves pounding dirt. The shooter's rifle barked twice more behind him, wild and desperate, but the shots went wide into the night. Josiah charged forward, racing against darkness and dread. Did someone else reach her first? His heart thudded with a single prayer that he not arrive too late. Rocky Pass, night. Josiah reined in at a rocky pass where moonlight silvered the stone. Up ahead, a flicker of orange danced behind boulders, a campfire. He dismounted quietly, boots crunching on gravel. The smell of wood smoke and coffee grounds confirmed someone had made camp here. Keeping low, he crept forward, revolver drawn. Beyond a cluster of granite slabs, he found a small dying fire. A tin coffee pot sat overturned in the ashes, its contents still smoldering. Beside it lay a bedroll and scattered belongings, a canteen, a wool blanket, and droplets of blood dark on the dust. Josiah's gut clenched. A struggle had happened here, and recently. A muffled sob echoed off the rocks. Josiah pressed himself against the canyon wall, inching toward the sound. In a shallow alcove, 2 figures wrestled in the dirt. A grizzled man in trail-worn clothes was grappling with a young dark-haired woman. Even in the dim light, Josiah saw the woman's rounded belly. It was Lily. Her wrists were bound and a gag bit into the corner of her mouth. The man growled, trying to pin her as she thrashed. "Settle down, you little hellcat," he snarled, backhanding her. Lily cried out in pain. The world went red at the edges of Josiah's vision. Without hesitation, he stepped from cover, cocking his revolver. "Let her go," he said, voice low and deadly calm. The man's head snapped up. He had a revolver tucked in his belt. Josiah saw him eye it. "Who the—" "Bounty hunter," Josiah interrupted, lying. "Same as you. Difference is, I'm faster on the draw, so I suggest you step away, friend." Firelight glinted in Josiah's steely eyes as he leveled his gun. He hoped the shadows hid the trembling of his other hand. The brute hesitated, sweat beading his temple. Lily moaned, half-conscious on the ground. "There's $2,000 in it for me if I bring her in," the man hissed. "Split it with you. 2,000. Josiah scoffed, taking one slow step closer. You're being played for a fool. She's worth 10. Now drop your iron. Last warning." A muscle in the man's jaw twitched. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the pop and crackle of the embers at Josiah's feet. The outlaw lunged for his gun. Thunder erupted in the enclosed space as Josiah fired first. The man's body jerked, then toppled hard against the rocks. His pistol clattered uselessly from his hand as he crumpled with a choked curse. Josiah's ears rang in the sudden silence. He kept his revolver trained on the downed attacker, but the man only groaned, clutching his bleeding shoulder. Not fatal, but enough to put him out of the fight. The Reverend kicked the fallen pistol out of reach. "Should have listened," he muttered. He knelt beside Lily, cutting the rough rope binding her wrists. Her lip was split, and a dark bruise was blooming on her cheek. The coppery scent of blood mingled with smoke in the air. Lily shrank back, eyes wide with fear as the tall stranger freed her gag. "You're hurt, ma'am," Josiah said, keeping his voice gentle. "I'm here to take me back," she finished hoarsely. Her hands flew protectively to her swollen belly. She tried to scoot away, winced, and doubled over with a sharp gasp of pain. Josiah raised his palms. "Easy. I'm not gonna hurt you." He cast a glance over his shoulder. The wounded bounty hunter was cursing under his breath, trying to crawl away. Josiah strode over and pressed his gun barrel to the man's temple. "Be still," he ordered. The man froze, raising a trembling hand. "She ain't worth it, preacher," the bounty hunter spat, blood on his teeth. "Do yourself a favor. Ah." He yelped as Josiah struck him on the head with his revolver's grip. The outlaw slumped into the dirt, finally silent. Josiah exhaled, holstering his weapon. Tangled emotions churned inside him. He had saved her. But for what purpose? To drag a pregnant woman back in chains. He turned to find Lily watching him, chest heaving. Her dark eyes glistened with confusion and fear, but also a flicker of hope. A single lantern remained lit near the extinguished fire. Josiah lifted it and held it up to see her better. Dirt streaked her tear-stained face. She couldn't have been more than 20. "Reverend Josiah Wade," he introduced himself softly. "Folks call me Preacher. I smell a doctor's tincture on that bandage of yours. Are you badly hurt?" Only then did he notice a crude bandage wrapped around Lily's upper arm, wet with fresh blood. The red stain sent a jolt through him. She'd been grazed by a bullet. Lily blinked at him in wary silence. Her hand trembled where it rested on the curve of her belly. "It's nothing," she managed, voice raw. "Just a scratch." Josiah slowly crouched a few paces away, making himself small. "May I look? I know a bit about tending wounds." His mind flashed to years past. Bullet wounds and whiskey stitches in lawless hideouts. He pushed the memory aside. Lily swallowed and gave a tight nod. As Josiah inched closer, lantern light revealed the fear etched in her face. He was suddenly aware of how he must look. A gaunt man in black, revolver at his hip, looming over her like an avenging angel. He softened his expression. "I'm sorry those men hurt you," he said quietly. They came out of nowhere," Lily whispered, wincing as he examined the bloody graze. "Thought I was safe for one night. I should have known better." She clenched her jaw, biting back a sob. Josiah tore a strip from a clean edge of the blanket and doused it with water from his canteen. The sharp scent of alcohol from a broken bottle of antiseptic filled the air as he gently cleaned her wound. Lily inhaled sharply, but didn't pull away. "This'll need proper tending soon," he said. "You'll be all right for now." He sat back, heart heavy. Here she was, the fugitive he'd ridden out to find, the answer to his prayers. And yet, seeing her bruised and bound on the ground, he felt more like a sinner than a savior. Tangible relief that she was alive warred with the grim knowledge of what came next. He cleared his throat. "Mrs. Dawson, Lily, I have to take you in." Her eyes hardened. A tear rolled down her cheek, catching the lantern glow. "I figured." She drew herself up, back against the rock wall. "You're a bounty hunter, then, or lawman?" "I'm doing what I must," Josiah replied, evasive. He offered his hand to help her stand. She ignored it and struggled up on her own, one hand braced on the wall for support. Stubborn, despite her condition. Josiah admired the grit it must have taken to get this far. "She's accused of murder," he reminded himself. "Don't forget why you're here." Lily swayed on her feet. Before she could topple, Josiah gently caught her by the elbow. She stiffened but allowed him to ease her onto a flat rock to sit. Her breaths came shallow and rapid. He realized the poor woman was exhausted and likely hadn't eaten properly in days. Guilt pricked at him. From behind them came a low groan, the bounty hunter stirring again. Josiah frowned. They couldn't stay here. More of his ilk could be near, including the rifleman who attacked earlier. "We have to move," he said. He retrieved a length of rope from his saddlebag and approached Lily apologetically. "I'm sorry, but I need to." Her chin lifted. "Tie me. Go on, then." There was fire in her voice now, defiant through the fatigue. "Do what you gotta do, preacher." She almost spat the honorific as if it were an insult. Josiah felt a sting. He wondered how she knew he was a preacher, then realized she must have overheard the other man. Or perhaps it was obvious even under his gun belt, the way he spoke, or the cross around his neck catching the lantern light. He hesitated. Every fiber of his moral being screamed that binding a pregnant woman was wrong. But if she bolted or fought and something happened... He tightened his jaw and looped the rope loosely around her front, securing her hands in front of her rather than behind. "It'll be easier on you this way," he murmured. Lily said nothing, but her glare spoke fury and betrayal. At that, Josiah felt a spark of his own temper. "Ma'am, I saved your life," he said, perhaps more harshly than intended. "Don't look at me like I'm the devil." He immediately regretted it, the sting of regret as sharp as a scorpion's tail. Lily's face crumpled and she turned away, shoulders shaking once with a silent sob. Josiah closed his eyes, steadied himself. This was already more than he bargained for. He busied himself rifling the unconscious thug's pockets, finding a spare revolver and a small purse of coins. He tossed the gun far into the dark and pocketed the coins. "Come on," he said gently. "My horse is just over the ridge. We'll ride through the night." Lily rose unsteadily. Josiah put a steadying hand at her elbow, and this time she didn't protest. Together, they left the little camp and its fallen guardian, disappearing into the shadows beyond the fire's glow. The night had grown fully dark, save a spill of moonlight guiding their path. High above, the stars watched in silent judgment as the reformed outlaw led his captive into the darkness, each of them limping from wounds unseen. Desert Trail, midnight. The moon hung directly overhead as Josiah urged his mare onward over the hardpan trail. Lily sat in front of him in the saddle, bound hands clutching the pommel. Now and then he felt her body tense with pain or fatigue, but she made no complaint. Night-blooming yucca flowers released a pale, sweet scent that mingled with the dust of their passage. In the distance, a lone owl hooted, punctuating the heavy silence between captive and captor. Josiah's mind churned with unease. With each mile, the weight of what he was doing settled heavier on his shoulders. Lily Dawson's slight form pressed against him as he held the reins. He could feel her trembling now and again, from the chill or from fear of what awaited her at journey's end. Perhaps both. He wanted to say something, anything, to pierce the quiet, but no easy words came. How could he reassure her when he himself was torn? At last, Lily broke the silence, her voice barely audible above the creak of saddle leather. "Do you know what they'll do to me? Back there?" Josiah's throat tightened. "There'll be a trial," he answered, though he wasn't entirely sure. If the sheriff had put out a poster, likely they wanted her alive for questioning. But if the rich husband's family had influence, he left it unsaid. "It's not for me to judge, ma'am. I'm just here to deliver you safely." The platitude tasted bitter on his tongue. Lily gave a hollow laugh. "Safely? To a noose, maybe?" She tilted her head, looking up at the starry sky. "I didn't kill Charles, you know." Josiah almost didn't hear her at first. Her tone was flat, as if stating a simple fact she no longer expected anyone to believe. He felt a jolt of curiosity and something like hope. "If that's true, you can tell your story to the judge," he said carefully. She shifted in the saddle, turning her face toward him. In the moonlight, he saw tears carving glistening tracks down her dusty cheeks. "Charles Dawson is a cruel man," she whispered. "Cruel and powerful. Are you saying he's alive?" Lily closed her eyes. "Last I saw, he was drunk and furious, but breathing. I snuck out that night. If he's dead now, it wasn't by my hand, but he'd certainly hang me for shaming him." Her bitter tone left no doubt she believed it. Josiah rode on in silence, processing. If her husband lived, he must have spun lies to save face and punish her. That could explain the outrageous bounty and the note on the poster. The thought made Josiah's blood simmer. He had assumed Lily was an outlaw, a criminal. Now the picture shifted. Perhaps she was victim more than villain. The moral lines blurred in the Reverend's mind, challenging his resolve. Ahead, the trail wound into a narrow canyon. High rock walls pressed in, and the mare's hooves clattered on stone. Josiah refocused. This spot was dangerous, a prime place for an ambush. He reached forward and quietly pulled the carbine from its sheath on his saddle, just in case. Lily noticed. "Is someone following us?" she asked, alarm creeping into her voice. "Probably," Josiah murmured. He thought of the rifleman who had tried to ambush him earlier, and the bounty hunter he'd left alive. News of $10,000 makes men relentless. "We'll get through this canyon, then rest. Just stay alert." They proceeded at a cautious walk, the canyon silence pressing on them. Overhead, a sliver of sky showed between cliffs. Josiah listened keenly for any echo that didn't belong. A displaced pebble, a breath. His finger lay alongside the carbine's trigger guard. Anxiety prickled down his neck like a warning. Halfway through the pass, the horse suddenly snorted and halted, ears twitching. Josiah's gut clenched. "Whoa," he whispered. In the same instant, a pebble skittered from a ledge above, pinging off the canyon wall. Lily gasped. "Down!" Josiah barked, yanking Lily off the saddle with one arm and diving against the canyon side. A split second later, gunfire erupted from above. Muzzle flashes lit the darkness as shots rained down. The horse whinnied and bolted into the shadows, saddle empty. Josiah covered Lily's body with his own as rocks chipped and ricocheted around them. He felt a searing line of pain across his left forearm, a bullet graze, but ignored it. They were exposed here. He grabbed Lily's bound wrists and half-dragged, half-carried her along the wall to a deeper alcove, the only cover available. She cried out as her ankle twisted on loose scree, but kept moving. They squeezed into the shallow recess, pressed tight. "Are you hit?" Josiah panted. No, Lily managed, eyes wide in the dark. "You." He shook his head quickly, though his arm throbbed warm and wet. "Stay behind me." Above, an eerie silence fell again. Josiah's mare was long gone, but he heard distant hoofbeats, likely the attackers repositioning or descending into the canyon. They were coming, and he was down to 6 bullets in his revolver, with the rifle lost when the horse fled. The odds turned grim in his mind. He drew his pistol and checked the chambers by touch. 6 shots, possibly more than 2 enemies by the sound of that volley. Lily pressed against the rock behind him, breathing hard. Josiah could almost feel the thunder of her heart through his back. If they catch us," she whispered. "They won't," Josiah said, more confidently than he felt. Blood dripped from his arm, and he ripped a strip from his sleeve to stanch it. In the darkness, a drip, drip on stone echoed. Or was that his imagination playing tricks? He steeled himself. The ticking clock in his head warned that midnight had come and gone. Time was running out in so many ways. A faint scrape of a boot on rock reached his ears. Josiah tensed, raising his gun. Moonlight did little to illuminate the canyon floor, but movement stirred in the blackness ahead. A voice drawled out, "Reverend Wade, I know you're down there. Got a mighty fine shot at your horse." A pause, then a cold chuckle. "Why don't you come on out? We got business to settle." Josiah's stomach dropped at the sound of that voice, familiar and soaked in malice. "Zeke," he called, squinting into the dark. His shout bounced off the canyon walls. Lily clutched his shoulder in silent question. Footsteps echoed now. 2, maybe 3 sets. From around a bend in the trail, figures emerged slowly, one holding a lantern up high, another leveling a shotgun. And at the center, swaggering forward with a Colt drawn, was Ezekiel Kane, the very devil from Josiah's past. "Well, I'll be," Zeke laughed, the lantern light carving sinister shadows on his scarred face. 6 years since Yuma, and here we are, the preacher and the cane, like old times. His grin was all wolf. "Hand over the lady, friend. There's a pile of dollars waiting, and I intend to collect. This time, without you double-crossing me." Lily inhaled sharply behind Josiah. He kept his revolver trained on Zeke, mind racing. Ezekiel Kane, his former gang brother turned Judas, the man he once called family, now aiming to kill him for a bounty. So this was the brutal alpha hunting Lily, and he had brought backup. Josiah recognized the stocky silhouette with the shotgun as one of Zeke's lackeys from years ago. 2 against 1, both armed, possibly a third hanging back. "Zeke," Josiah called, buying time, "let the woman be. You want vengeance, I'm right here." He edged forward from the alcove, keeping himself between Lily and the gunman. Zeke tilted his head, considering. "Vengeance. Ain't about that, friend. We both got sins enough, but $10,000 covers a multitude of them." He spat on the ground. "Though I will enjoy seeing you beg, same as you left me to beg when the law caught up. Preacher Wade, playing saint while I rotted in a cell." His eyes flashed with hate. Josiah's jaw tightened. "You broke the code, Zeke. Innocents died in that robbery because of you." Innocence, innocence. Zeke waved the lantern, impatient. Spare me your sermon. I'm done talking. Last chance, toss out your gun and step aside, or my boys fill you so full of lead they'll collect this bounty and a reward for your corpse. High above, a fragment of moonlight peered through the clouds, illuminating the standoff. Josiah's mind thumped like a prayer drum. He had one advantage. They might not know Lily's exact position behind him. If a fight broke out, she could be caught in crossfire. He had to draw them away from her. Slowly, he lowered his revolver and laid it on the ground. "All right," he called. "Don't shoot. I'm coming out." "Josiah, no," Lily hissed, grabbing his wounded arm. He sucked in a breath as pain shot up, but he mustered a calm facade. Under his breath he whispered, "Stay hidden, no matter what." She clung to his sleeve, eyes shining. He gently pulled free and stepped forward, hands half raised. Zeke's grin widened. "That's it. Always knew you were yellow at heart." He nodded to his thug. The shotgun-wielding brute approached, swinging his barrel toward Lily's alcove. "Both of you, out here in the light," he barked. Josiah's heart lurched. She can't move fast. She's hurt. He lied quickly, taking another step to draw their focus. His boot nudged his revolver in the dirt, positioning it just so. He kept his stance loose, submissive. "Zeke, let her be. She's just a girl in trouble. This between us doesn't concern her." Zeke barked a laugh. "Doesn't concern. She's the golden goose, Wade, and you're the damned fox guarding her." He leveled his Colt at Josiah's chest. "Your hero acts touching, truly, but time's up." In the shadow of the rock, Lily shifted. The thug moved toward her, shotgun glinting. Josiah's pulse thundered. The clock of fate ticked deafeningly in his ears. Do something. In a blur of motion, he dropped to one knee, snatching up his discarded revolver from the dirt. A shocked yell burst from Zeke. Too slow. Josiah fired, boom, and the shotgun goon's knee exploded in blood. The man howled, collapsing. Zeke's lantern fell, plunging them into half-dark as he loosed two wild shots. One slug tore past Josiah's shoulder. The other struck stone inches from Lily's crouched form with a vicious whine. She cried out, cowering. Rage and terror ignited in Josiah's veins. He sprang forward, tackling Zeke with an animal shout. The two men hit the ground hard. Zeke's pistol skittered away into the night. They grappled fiercely, rolling over the rocky ground. Zeke slammed an elbow into Josiah's injured arm, drawing a grunt of pain. Josiah retaliated with a headbutt that split Zeke's lip. Somewhere behind, the wounded thug was sobbing in agony. Lily huddled against the canyon wall, arms shielding her belly as stray sparks from the fallen lantern caught some scrub brush alight. Flickering light and shadow made phantoms of the struggle. Zeke managed to flip Josiah onto his back, fingers clawing for Josiah's throat. "Always were a stubborn bastard," he snarled, spittle flying. Josiah gagged as those rough hands crushed his windpipe. Stars danced in his vision. Desperate, he fumbled at his belt and yanked free his last resort, a stubby hunting knife. With a roar, he drove the blade into Zeke's side. Zeke howled, jerking back. Josiah sucked in sweet air and scrambled up, kicking his old friend's pistol farther away. Zeke staggered, one hand pressed to the knife hilt in his flesh. His eyes in the firelight were feral with shock and fury. You cut me," he wheezed. "Don't move, Zeke," Josiah panted, retrieving his fallen revolver. He trained it on the bleeding man, chest heaving. This was the moment he'd secretly dreaded, and perhaps craved, since their paths diverged. Justice, revenge, call it what you will. The acrid smell of burning sagebrush wafted by as the small fire spread to a tumbleweed. It cast hellish light on the two figures, one on the brink of defeat, the other on the brink of damnation. Behind Josiah, Lily struggled to her feet, leaning on the canyon wall. Zeke's man lay whimpering in the dust. In the distance, the first faint tint of dawn blushed against the night, a promise of morning not far off. Zeke sank to his knees, blood seeping between his fingers. Yet he laughed, a wet, gurgling chuckle. "Gonna finish it, preacher. Do it," he taunted, baring red-stained teeth. "Be the righteous hand of God. Isn't that your role?" His words dripped poison and truth all at once. Josiah's finger trembled on the trigger. How many nights had he dreamed of stopping Zeke for good? And now it would be so easy. A squeeze, a flash, and one less devil in the world. The distant howl of a coyote rose again, as if urging him on. He tightened his grip, then faltered. In the silence that followed, he heard a smaller sound behind him. Lily softly weeping. Josiah glanced back. Her eyes pleaded with him through tears, not for Zeke's life, but for Josiah's soul. In that moment, the Reverend realized the line he was about to cross: mercy or payday, vengeance or redemption. The choice he made here would haunt or heal him forever. Slowly, Josiah lowered his gun. He knelt and picked up Zeke's fallen colt, tossing it far out of reach into the darkness. Zeke stared in disbelief. "You ain't got the guts," he snarled. But Josiah saw relief ghost across the man's face even as he spat insults. "Maybe not," Josiah said quietly. He met Zeke's gaze one last time. "I'll pray for you, brother." Then he turned away, leaving Ezekiel Kane alive in the dirt with his sins and his wounded pride. Josiah limped toward Lily. She looked at him as if seeing him anew. Beyond her, dawn's first light peeked over the canyon rim, painting her bruised face in hues of hope. Josiah gently cut the ropes binding her wrists. She inhaled sharply, uncertain. In the east, the sun began its slow ascent, banishing the vestiges of night. Zeke's remaining cohort had fled or fallen silent. It was over. External conflict spent, the Reverend and the fugitive faced each other free of fetters for the first time. Lily spoke, voice tentative and thick with emotion. "Thank you." Two simple words, yet they carried the weight of her world. Josiah managed a weary smile. He tipped his hat, his old habit of courtesy returning awkwardly. There was nothing left to do now but make the final choice. He reached into his duster and pulled out the folded wanted poster, now crumpled and smeared with his own blood. For a long moment, he stared at Lily's sketched face under the bold print of $10,000. He thought of Pastor Billings struggling for life back in town, of Grace's tears, of his own desperate bargain with heaven. Then he thought of Lily's unborn child and the kind of future it might have, should have, if given a chance. Josiah's hand tightened, crumpling the poster into a ball. With a decisive motion, he flung the blood-stained bounty paper into the small campfire that smoldered nearby from Zeke's lantern. The poster caught flame, curling into blackness. Lily's breath caught in her throat as she watched it burn. She opened her mouth, searching for words, but none came. Instead, she simply pressed her forehead to Josiah's chest, sobbing silently in relief. Josiah closed his eyes, resting a gentle hand on her back. A strange peace washed over him amid the crackle of the dying fire and the soft pastel glow of morning. He had delivered her from danger, but not to the fate he'd intended. In saving her, he'd damned the bounty, and perhaps saved himself. The dawn sun broke over the canyon walls as Josiah helped Lily onward, both of them limping but alive. Behind them, the ghostly silhouettes of the night's violence faded into the morning mist. He watched the sun rise as the fugitive walked free. His soul still ached with unanswered prayers. Mercy had saved others, but could it ever save him? He found mercy for her, but not yet for himself.